Sometimes when you're building a mobile application, you want to be able to share data from the application to an external application like an email app or maybe Facebook or Twitter. This recipe shows you how to do this. This recipe is from Code Cookbook, your source for short video recipes on how to build great React Native applications. Let's go ahead and get started. So you can see here that we have a simple React Native application. This is actually generated from the init command from the React Native command line interface. And all we're doing here right now is just showing this Code Cookbook text. So let's actually change this to more appropriate text. So we want that to say share. And now when we click this button, we actually want to be able to share something to the mail application. And so let's go ahead and import share from React Native. And then we're going to go ahead and need to add a method that'll be called that will actually work with this share here from the React Native module. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we have this share message, and we actually need to go ahead and define this in our component. So let's do that. Share message. And now we can go ahead and define the method. Now, so we have this share message method, and like we said, we want to actually be able to share some data when we invoke this method. And so the API for the share module is just this share message, and then we can pass it an object with a message property that holds the information that we want to share. So we can say this simple shared message. Now, share.share actually returns a promise. So we're going to go ahead and pass a method that will handle the result of the promise, and we'll call this show result. So we need to go ahead and create a method for that. And this method will go ahead and set some state, which we'll call result. And we need to go ahead and initialize the state here in the constructor. Whoops, almost forgot. This needs to say set state. And now we should have a really simple working share example. So let's go ahead and add a simple text component here that will display the result of calling share. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to stringify the result. So let's go ahead and refresh this and see if we can get something working. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel here just to make sure that everything's working. And you can see that the resolved promise created this action, and it just tells us that we've kind of dismissed the share action sheet and that we didn't actually do anything. However, if we click this again and we go to the mail application, when it's up, you'll see that the email here is populated with the content from this message property. So we know that that's working properly. And we can actually go ahead and send this. Sorry, this is a little slow and buggy here, but there we go. We can send that. Now, when it's actually sent, you can see that the object that gets kind of resolved by the promise is a little different. It has an action of shared action here, and then it tells us the type of the activity that we actually shared the message to. So this is how we do kind of really simple sharing of data to external applications. However, we can actually get a little bit more fancy when we do this. And so let's go ahead and show what that looks like. There are more options that we have when we're sharing when we're sharing data to other applications. And so let's explore those. So okay, so now we have this fancy share, and we're going to have a separate method. This one's going to be called fancy share message. And we're going to have to go up here and fancy share message. Good. So now this time when we call share, we're actually going to pass in not only a message, but also a URL. And again, this is a promise, so we need to pass in a function that will be called when the promise gets resolved. So let's go ahead and refresh this. And when we open up the mail application this time, you'll notice that there's a message and a URL that populates the email. So that's one way that we can get a little bit fancier with our share. Now, if you look at the example in the UI Explorer for React Native, there's actually a title property that they use in the example, but in my experience, that doesn't really seem to do anything. It might just be that I'm not opening the right application to share data to, but a lot of times this doesn't really do anything for you. However, there's another parameter that this takes, and these are options that customize the look of the dialog or action sheet that appears when you try and share something. So for example, I can specify a tint color property, and I don't care about that. Now when I refresh this and click fancy share, you'll notice that this cancel button here is green. So I've set the tint color here, and I've kind of customized the appearance of this. Now again, there's another property that's set here in the example application from the Explorer UI, and that property is dialog title. And again, this doesn't seem to matter much. So I don't really worry about it. So now you've just seen how you can share data external to a React Native application. You've seen kind of a basic share case and a share case that has a little bit more options. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this recipe from the Code Cookbook. Be sure to check back soon for a new recipe.